Welcome to the So You're Ready to Date podcast. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Angie. And here's where we talk about all things dating, love, and relationships, and most importantly, having fun.
Join us for practical advice for dating successfully on your terms.
Welcome aboard
and enjoy the ride. Welcome back to another episode of So You're Ready to Date. And today we're going to talk about something that I feel like maybe every single one of us can relate to, and how it's about how self-sabotage might be showing up in your relationships. Is that something that you're relying on as a way to break up with somebody, or how maybe we can spot the signs, spot some ways to avoid that if you're really serious about wanting to make some changes, wanting to make relationships work, and to stop sabotaging something that's probably good, even if it doesn't always feel like that in the beginning, especially if you're not used to that. So we're going to dive deep into this one. This might be one that you want to save for later and come back to if you're not in the right headspace to want to make the changes that you know probably need to be made in order to start having the type of relationships, romantic, familial, friendship, whatever they might be, to be the happiest and healthiest they can.
I think that this is a great episode because some of us have an idea of what self-sabotage is, and it might be, we might have an idea of what we think it is, and it might be even a little bit different than what we think it is. Because sometimes I think we think that self-sabotage is when we know that we're sabotaging our relationships, or that we are sabotaging good relationships that aren't working out. But it means that we are maybe sabotaging all relationships, whether they were going to work or not. We are sabotaging all of our relationships because we don't trust that we can pick good partners for ourselves.
Well, and I'm going to refer back to like the paragon of information, right? TikTok. So I saw this a couple of different TikToks, and I'll put stuff in the show notes if you want to go check it out. But somebody was saying that the reason that we self-sabotage is because it allows us to control the outcome. So I think when you talk about maybe not even consciously doing it, we do those things because our body and our nervous system and our brain feels more comfortable, right? When we have this sense of control of what we know is going to happen. It's something I know I struggle with, without always realizing that that's why I'm doing it. I'm like, but I don't feel comfortable in this. So it must be because the relationship is wrong. It can't be because of me, right? No, I'm not the problem. No.
Well, and if you remember when we were talking about the vibrational frequency that we put out and talking about the thermostat, how we are set at a certain level, and anything above or below a certain level is outside of our comfort zone. And you were just talking about unconsciously, we might not even be aware that we're self-sabotaging and we want to control this outcome unconsciously. That's the vibrational frequency that we're putting out. So we might not even be consciously aware of it, but our subconscious knows that this is the frequency that we're comfortable at. This is the outcome that we're comfortable with. So we're purposely creating this outcome over and over and over again, whether that be an outcome of a bad relationship, or breaking up with a relationship, or ending a relationship, or in a toxic relationship, or whatever that may look like. We are sabotaging ourselves subconsciously because that's where our thermostat is set to, and that's where we are currently comfortable at. And so we have to become aware of where we're at so that we can break free of that pattern and change that pattern and set a new normal and a new frequency of where we're going to operate at and what we're going to create for ourselves.
Right. Because sometimes it is something that we're very actively doing. We're like, okay, I don't know how else to not feel out of control, so I'm doing this. But, you know, sometimes it is about our past. Sometimes it is about, this feels like a relationship I had in the past, and I don't like how that felt. So it could be a way of us subconsciously kind of delving into that. So I think it's always one of those things that we probably need to put this on every episode. Talk to a therapist if you're really concerned. This is just two girls having a conversation. We're inviting you in, but if you something that you feel like maybe there's past experiences that keep contributing to this fact where you sabotage relationship after relationship, then I think that's something that's worth exploring, because our brain and our system is always going to gravitate towards what feels comfortable, what feels normal, what feels remembered. Maybe that's a good way to put it, is that's what it's searching for. So yes, it may completely help you tank this relationship that felt promising, it felt good and like it was going somewhere, but it starts to challenge you, or it starts to put you in this space of, "Ooh, I might have to look at my past. I don't want to do that." So it's finding this way out of, oh, it's okay to be uncomfortable, but is that uncomfortableness telling me something, or is it just about me being uncomfortable because this is new, uncharted territory?
As you're thinking through that new uncharted territory, or thinking about what that's going to be as far as uncomfortableness or how that's going to work, the one thing you can start to do is notice what you're noticing, notice what your thoughts are, because self-sabotage is when you are not trusting yourself, you're not trusting the partner that you're picking, you're not trusting the decisions that you're making. And so your subconscious is saying, or you're telling yourself that you're not good at choosing partners, you're not good at choosing friends, you're not good at doing this, or whatever that story is. So instead, you're proving that story to yourself, whatever that story is. So notice what you're noticing. Are you looking for reasons that somebody is not meeting your expectations? Are you putting expectations on another person that are unrealistic and expecting them to be not human, perfect? Are you looking for where they are not meeting your expectations instead of where they are exceeding your expectations? Would be one way of taking a look at what they're doing. And it's hard to step back from expectations that you put on other people, but it's really freeing to release other people from expectations. It's really freeing for yourself emotionally. It's really freeing for the other person to just let the other person be them and give and contribute to a relationship in a way that feels really good for them. And it frees you up to notice what they are doing and what they are giving for a relationship. But it can be a little bit challenging to sit back and notice where you're putting those expectations on the relationship to be able to let go of them. So that would be one of the first steps, and one of the first things that you can do is really just pay attention and notice what you're noticing, and notice the thoughts that you're having about the relationship and about the person that you're having that relationship with.
Well, it was a conversation that my boyfriend and I had a while ago now, and it was like around labels. So it was like, well, if you label somebody your boyfriend or girlfriend, there are all these expectations. And I was like, sweetheart, we're in a relationship. There are already expectations. The problem happens when you have expectations and I have expectations and we don't communicate what those said expectations are. So if your expectation is fresh flowers every Friday or brunch every Sunday or whatever they are, but you're expecting that other person to just know, then yeah, they're never going to be that if they wanted to, they would person. They're never going to quite hit all of these marks that you've set because you're not having that discussion. And I don't remember if we talked about it in that manifestation episode, but it's sometimes it's about building that small trust. So yeah, a lot of self-sabotage is just this mistrust of, my picker is broken. I can't pick good people. I can't pick good situations. It's okay. How can I find that smallest step of, I trust my gut to tell me what to order at Starbucks, or I go into a bookstore and I trust. So finding those small ways to start trusting yourself so that you can finally prove, because we have that negativity bias, right? Our brain wants to find what's wrong. Because that's easier, and our lizard brain that kept us safe. So we have to almost disconnect, or at least turn the volume down on that and be like, I can trust myself to do and pick in my best interest. And so finding those small ways where you can show yourself, oh, that's right. I can trust myself. And yes, it might just be coffee. Yes, it just might be picking a donut or a book, but you have to start with those little things so that your brain starts seeing, oh, that's right. We aren't fully broken. We can still do this. And then it becomes easier to be like, okay, I trust myself to pick a car. I trust myself to pick this person. And then we can slowly build that up over time so that we know that we're not bad at this. We just are out of practice.
Thinking about how you're feeling about some of that stuff too when you're talking through that. So we're talking about expectations and talking about that communication, and we're all human. Let's talk about the expectation of flowers every Friday. And let's say you communicate that, and your significant other does a really good job. And 6 weeks in a row, they bring you flowers. And on the seventh week, they have a really bad week or a really bad day, and they forget to send flowers, they forget to order them, they forget to pick them up, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they have failed to meet this expectation, and they realize it when they get home and they apologize, and you say, it's okay, it's not a big deal. Do you really mean it? Or are you suddenly holding a grudge, and are you suddenly holding that against them and counting up and stacking up grudges that you can hold against them even when you're telling them that you're not? And that's another way that we sabotage, is we file these away, and these, put it in our Rolodex, ladies. How many of us have a Rolodex and have the cards come flying out? That is an analogy that my ex used to use all the time, is women have a Rolodex, and he used to accuse me of it. And it's not just women. My current boyfriend sometimes has the Rolodex that comes out. I've seen it come out. And the cards come flying out when something doesn't quite go right, and this and this and this and this. And you're not really letting go of what you say that you're letting go of. So are you one that's holding grudges against the relationships in your life, even when you say that you're letting things go?
Or maybe that modified silent treatment. We're like, what's wrong? Nothing. Nope, I'm fine. Nothing. Or just not texting back. Just going to make him wait an extra hour or two, or, anything that can kind of be seen as, almost passive aggressive, or maybe aggressive aggressive, however you kind of want to approach that. But that's a really good point, is to allow each of you to be human within the relationship. There are days where you're not going to show up as the best version of yourself because it's unrealistic. I've had this discussion too, where he's like, he always wanted to like leave his problems at the door so that when we spent time together, it was good and it was quality and all of that stuff. And I'm like, if you need to for whatever reason, fine, but that's not what I signed up for. I signed up for shitty days. I signed up for good days. I signed up for in between days. I signed up for you. And so if you can't kind of feel comfortable being the real you, then that's another conversation that we have. And I think that's part of that trust aspect. They have to trust you. You have to trust yourself that you're not going to fly off the handle when they have a very human moment, and be able to say, you know what, I had just the worst day. I forgot the flowers, or I forgot that we were going to out. Can we do X, Y, or Z? And it's about letting those people in your life have those human moments, because you'll want that same courtesy at some point. We both, in my relationship, we've both had those days where I'm like, I just need to cry and be dramatic and have you say, I get it, you're right, it'll all be okay. Or to have those days where you're like, you can do this. I know you can. I know right now it feels tough, and to encourage people. But if you're not building that trust within yourself to be like, I think I can trust this person with this sensitive topic, then that's again something to keep working on. But if you're not going to talk and you're not going to allow for that humanness, then maybe you're not ready for a kind of the relationship that you want. And that's always a possibility too.
And to piggyback on that, when you're thinking about that and whether or not you're ready for that relationship and that trust, and talking about trust, do you trust yourself? That trust comes out in other ways and shows in whether or not you trust your partner. Whether or not you trust your partner is a direct reflection of whether or not you trust yourself. And one of the ways your partner is going to pick up on whether or not you trust them is the level of jealousy that shows up in your relationship. How jealous are you? Do you allow your partner to have free time with their friends or with their family without a lot of jealousy of how they're spending their time and who they're spending their time with? I think that is one thing that has definitely changed as I've gotten older. In my 20s, it was a lot harder for me to not be jealous when my significant other wanted to go out without me, versus now, if my significant other wants to go do something without me, it's like, yeah, see you later. Oh, I get to spend more time in my craft room, or I get to go have a weekend to myself, or I get to go hang out with the girls. Yeah, I'll see you. Have fun. So it's a very different situation now, but I have also found that I trust myself, I trust my relationship, and I'm in a very different place. So thinking about how you're feeling about the jealousy aspect, and is there jealousy in your relationship? How does that show up? And what is that telling you, and how are you feeling about it? Again, going back to notice what you're noticing and really paying attention to what that's telling you about yourself. Going back to the other episode that we had on social awkwardness and being self-aware, having some self-awareness about how you're feeling and what those feelings are trying to tell you.
Well, and I think there's a fine line between asking about somebody's plans for the weekend and what they're doing with their friends and interrogating, right? There, I can be interested to know that, you're going out of town to visit some friends. And then there's this very real sense of, what are you doing every single hour? You need to text me, blah, blah, blah. And I think when I notice that I kind of start veering towards like feeling jealous, it's usually because I'm not paying attention to me. And so when I'm like active in the things that I love to do and reaching out to the people in my life, I have way less time to be paranoid and worried, because it happens to everybody. And I think we always have those moments where it feels like if you don't get away from this, then there's something wrong with you. It's a very normal human thing. It was obviously way worse in the beginning when I was dating my current person, but it's gotten better. And I think sometimes it's this reminder of, I know my worth. If he wants to blow it up by making out and fooling around on me, he's perfectly welcome to. It means that I won't stick around. So I think sometimes it comes back to that worth too, of knowing that this is not a conversation about what you bring to the table, because that still feels icky to me. And we'll probably have to do an episode on that at some point about what people bring to the table. But I know my worth as a person in a relationship, as a person by myself, just as me. And so sometimes it was reminding myself, I can't know what he does every moment of every day. I don't think I would want to. That feels like way more work. I don't want that to be my job. But I had to get to this point where I'm like, he said he doesn't want to mess it up. I have to trust that he doesn't want to mess it up. And he's welcome to. And I've told him, here are my hard outs. You do any of these things, and as much as it'll hurt, I will always choose myself, because I've done too much work to get to this place of loving and respecting and trusting myself to let a boy ruin that. So that's part of the work too, is why we always want you to build this life that you love, why we always kind of want you to build that love and trust for yourself, so that when you have these situations, it might suck, but you will have the strength to be able to say, but I choose me. And maybe it's because the relationship isn't right now. Maybe I'm not right now, but I will choose me and what's best for me over having a relationship just to have a relationship every time.
And because you had said that and talking about your hard outs and exiting a relationship, want to talk about the reverse. If you're looking for that relationship, are you a serial dater, or do you avoid that commitment with that when I, then I, when somebody, or when they, then I, when they, then I'll commit, or when they show me this, then I'll do that? Or do you date one person after another because nobody ever measures up? Are those some red flags that you're seeing in your life, and repeating patterns? Those are some signs of self-sabotage that you can take a step back and really look at and go, okay, what am I thinking? What am I noticing? Why am I repeating these patterns? What's coming up for me? And how can I sit back and change that frequency that I'm on? What self work do I need to do? And which one of these patterns is really, really hitting home for me so that I can make some changes and build that trust so that I can pick the partner that's going to be right for me, or that I can pick partners that are a better match for me and actually give them a chance.
Is it one of those situations like the butterflies are gone? I just don't feel that same spark as I did. So I guess this must, must be over. I'm like, it's not sustainable, right? It can't be this big explosive thing all the time. And that's a really great way for people to find that fast out. We're like, yeah, it's just not there anymore. The physical aspect is just tapered off. I just don't feel like passion. Sometimes you have to cultivate that. And it's this really weird thing of like, you can't schedule certain things. Like you should never have to schedule sex. You should never have to schedule date nights. All of this should just be spontaneous and romantic and all of these things. I'm like, but maybe that's not how you work. Most people don't have like spontaneous arousal. It's, something that has to be situational. It has to be something that kind of is built up. And to expect that on a dime, like flipping a switch, you can just be on and ready to do whatever. Again, back to those unrealistic expectations. Like, if you're always feeling like you just can't make it past the 3-month mark, or you can't make it past 5 dates, or for whatever reason, I think that's the time to step back and be like, is it because I just keep dating all these people with red flags? Or is it because I'm looking for this thing that nobody can ever actually be? And it's an easy way for me to say, I guess it's just not out there for me.
If you're looking for that thing and you're saying, am I looking for this thing that nobody can actually be? Do you actually have your list? Write down that list of what it is that you're actually looking for, because there is somebody out there that can be the perfect person for you. We are not saying that the right person isn't out there and that you can't have what you're looking for in a partner, but we are saying, where is the self-sabotage coming from? Because if you are serial dating and you are going through one partner after another just waiting for the butterflies to wear off, that is a sign of the self-sabotage. And you could step back and say, okay, let's look at this a little bit deeper, because I want something a little bit more than 5 dates or 3 months or whatever that looks like for you.
The call is usually coming from inside the house, right? So you have to, are you being the partner that you are expecting somebody else to be? I'm pretty sure we talked about it in like that first manifestation episode, where I'm like, are you embodying and being that person that you would want to be in a relationship with? Because if you're not doing that work, then the right exact perfect person could walk by and just plop themselves on your lap and you'd be like, what the heck are you doing here? This is not what I asked for.
Send it back and get me someone else.
And then the walking red flag will come by and you're like, see, this was what I was waiting for. We did an episode in season 5 about being a better you, not a different you. But it's about being the best healed version of you. And if that means working on that self-trust, if that means working on that self-love, talking to a counselor or a therapist or somebody, sometimes it might be a space of, man, I really want to date and be in a relationship, but maybe you're just not in that space yet. Maybe this is the sign that says, I need to step back and I need to take the time for me to do the things that I need to do, to figure out what I like, to figure out what I love, to figure out what I'm looking for in a relationship. And there's no shame in taking that step back. You're never too late. It'll be on the time that it needs to be on, but giving yourself permission and space to be like, I'm going to need to do some things for me so that I can figure out how to have the relationship that I want and that I deserve.
And we love having a relationship with all of you. And if you love having a relationship with us, but are finding it hard to have a relationship with anybody else, tell us your stories. We want to hear your stories. We want to know what you want to hear about from us and how we can help you improve your relationships. Go ahead and drop us a line at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. Find us on all the socials. Everything will be linked in the show notes. And we will see you back here next week with another great episode.